So welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. And today we are going to talk about, well, we'll see what we're going to talk about. We don't have a particular topic, but I'd like to look at it from a perspective of taking the para out of the paranormal. How can we make the paranormal normal? And we have actually had a little text that we were all looking at from Carl Jung about synchronicities, causality, space-time, and all of that. And we're just going to go straight into that and play a little bit with that and see. And also, I would like to actually, I mean, we all know what a synchronicity is. We've talked about this. I just want to really look at it and say, okay, so what has changed in the new energies now? Is really a synchronicity still this paranormal thing, that mystical thing that we don't really know how to, understand or anything? Has really, with the energies changing and with the level of consciousness, in this group, can we now actually look at things from a slightly normal perspective? Making the mystical, taking the mysticism out of the mystical. So that's sort of the context. And I'm just going to pass it on to whoever wants to kick it off with what stood out for them in that particular text.
I'll jump in if I can. I love Jungian stuff, so I was stoked when I actually saw that piece. But Jung tended to be a little bit the opposite to Einstein. I mean, one of the quotes that I'm constantly using with people from Einstein is that if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand enough about it. Jung tended to try and turn the simple into the scientific for the community to continue to embrace him. And he does a little bit there where he talks about synchronicities, but the ultimate point that he makes with everyone that he makes in that particular piece, as you saw, and all that he spoke about synchronicity, was the fact that it was confirmation of our presence. It was always, synchronicity was confirmation of the far greater of the whole being present here with us in this experience. And so synchronicities were always that beautiful, I am still all of who I am, the whole spirit of who I am. And it was, he did a lot of work on it. It's kind of a little bit sad and a little bit, when you look at any of the great scientists, even modern ones and current ones that are out there, if they start, as they get older, they start to talk more about the spirit, they start to talk more about the interdimensionality or the multidimensionality of how we express the whole of who we are. And they're always written off as, they're dementia, or they're getting old, or they're getting silly and we shouldn't listen to them. But even Will Tiller's latest book, where he talks about the magic, or true magic, genuine magic, and he's talking about all of this stuff, about the synchronicities and what's going on, refers to everything. And it was so caned out there in the media. It was so, this latest book of his was so rubbished out there in the media, where in fact he was talking about, similar to Dean Radin with the Noetic Sciences. Dean's, what was his latest book called? But it too talks about real magic, effectively. And it's amazing how these great scientists that are actually trying so hard to meld for the sake of the general human race to understand what's going on. But synchronicity is a beautiful way for us to actually step in and just remember where we are and what's going on. And of course, it all aligns to the fact in these new energies of the power of creation we now have. That there is no set line anymore. Now we actually get to create our lives the whole time. And that synchronicity, again, is that beautiful confirmation of that power. So, anyway.
If we just look, no, thanks. And if we just look at the word itself, synchronizing Cronus, right? So I looked at that, Cronus. So what's actually happening is, as we are bringing the past, the present, and the future into one now and start to experience this, we will be at the level where we can experience, we're going to live from a place of synchronicities, right? So this is going to be a completely different way of living. It's something we will have from a multi-dimensional aspect. It's going to be a different way of creating. Yeah, there might be instant manifestation, but it might be not. because we need to really understand the space-time causality. That's what he's mentioning there as well. And the cause and effect, that's something that I've been looking into. What is actually cause and effect, But I don't want to jump just yet to any of that. Let's just carry on with synchronicity. As anybody else wants to speak to synchronicities? And somebody said, who is 7? Did I see it in the chat somewhere? Somebody said, are there fake synchronicities? Cronus in sync? Yes. Yes, there are fake synchronicities. Yes, there are false synchronicities that can actually take us very much into the wrong direction, And those false synchronicities very often happen when we're still attached to expectations and projections. And when we're giving our power away, we're looking for outside validation. So, I love looking at my astrology chart and, have a card read or something like that. But when it becomes a thing that you are starting to actually, live your life based on that, then you're giving your power away, and you're actually looking at trying to find a God source outside of yourself. And that can turn into false synchronicities. Does anyone else have any examples or something to say about false synchronicities, or was that?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm just seeing that as like the self-fulfilled prophecy. It's like you're just co-creating just with yourself, or you're creating just with yourself and kind of cutting off the co-creative everything that's around us. And we kind of get stuck in those patterns. And that like as a false synchronicity. And I'm thinking of synchronicities like kind of like following your North Star, or just like how a positive charge finds a negative charge, and etc. It's just kind of that constant stream of understanding that comes in, and you kind of just know you're on the right path. When you feel that, like when you feel a false synchronicity, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel confused. You're going to feel like, what's going on? But when you feel that right synchronicity, you just get a big grin on your face. And you're like, oh, today's going to be a good day. I can't believe this shit's happening. And then your friend rolls up in a vehicle and says, come on in. There's something, it's like, it's when the magic starts happening.
Yeah, what I find is like, I see synchronicities as like trailblazers, right? So if I start to get distracted by something, or if I need like confirmation that I'm on the right path, like it would just show up to like keep me in the direction that I was going in. If it's something that stirs me up and I start to get too attached to it, like the example that I would give is, we all see repeating numbers a lot. And to me, like what number shows up isn't necessarily that important. It's just that light turning on, like, remember to go this way. But if I start to want to look up what the angel meaning of something is, like when you get so attached to trying to go down the rabbit hole, like that's a false synchronicity. If it just kind of shows up and you're like, okay, yeah, I see you, I remember, and you go with it, like that's real to me. When it stirs me down the rabbit hole, then I know that that's just coyote teaching a lesson.
I mean, I think that speaks to distraction too, right? It's like when you see something and it lights you up, you're like, oh, right, I'm working with that. Okay, I'm on the right path. But then if all kinds of other things come in and, lead you the other way, I think at this point in our path, in our process, we have to know what's a distraction and what's not, right? What's on path, what's on purpose. So those fake synchronicities can take us, what AB calls it, curiosity learning, right? Oh, I'm supposed to go down this rabbit hole, but no, that's just a waste of your time.
So
yeah, curiosity learning where you're not actually doing anything. And then I want to jump off with what 77 just said about AI and synchronicity. And when I think about the AI, I generally think about false synchronicities, and it's just repeating memories. Like just nothing is actually new. You're not actually doing anything. You're just repeating the same process over and over and over again. Like the sympathetic and the parasympathetic being that AI system, that artificial intelligence of how we program ourselves. And so we just program, like we program those synchronicities. And like when we depend on those programs too much, that's where we lose sight of like the co-creative, like like just the synchronicities we didn't see coming, the ones that kind of catch us by surprise and they're so exciting.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Sean. That's my synchronicities when they're like by surprise, like, wow, that's awesome. But I would say false synchronicities for me would be, and I've done this, living vicariously through someone else, whether it's my kids or my sisters or my brothers, or just instead of being here with me. I think that's how I kind of grew up, by living through them, not through me.
Interesting you say that, because I feel like I've done that a lot growing up too. Even
Yeah.
just being a kid.
Yeah.
Like it's part of the nature when you have a big community and you know a shitload of people. You start to see things through other people's eyes. And it's easy to just
Thinking you should be
get
doing
back
that.
through your own eyes.
Yeah, it's like, I should be doing that then. If they're doing that, I should be doing that.
I
want to add. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. You want to go ahead first?
I'll be quick. I was going to say with what Sean was saying, like I find myself in Groundhog Day, and it's usually like a real synchronicity that will make me see that repeating habit, and then I can break that program and stop it. So like I was here in Groundhog Day when you were talking about that, Sean.
So I was thinking about what Seven had said about the AI idea too. Thanks for bringing that in, Seven. The false synchronicities is like when you're thinking about something and you click on or you're searching for something on the internet. And then after you finish looking up whatever it is you're looking up, all of a sudden you start to see all these advertisements showing up, showing you the same thing. For me, that's false synchronicity. That is not, you wanting that in your reality. It's just that the AI is now flooding you, thinking you're, oh, wait a minute, here's a synchronicity because I was just thinking about this and just looking it up. And then 5 minutes later, there's something else showing up about it again, and that's, to me, that's the false sense of synchronicity in one aspect there. But like Amy was saying, for me, synchronicity is when, you experience the joy of something in your reality. And that brings you great excitement. And so, yeah, that's what I feel the synchronicity is for me, at least.
I like that idea of the tech synchronicity. And I find that usually it's like right off the bat. Like it's like the first thing you look at. It sometimes pops out. But then if you just keep scrolling and scrolling, it's not like a true synchronicity anymore, because you're just going to find what you're looking for. Or what's been looking to find you is going to find you instead. But like, it's like, yeah, sometimes they come in, but sometimes more often than not, they're the false tricking distraction kind.
So the false synchronicity is like what the AI is doing. It's like tricking you. And then it could be sometimes it's real synchronicity, but then you can't even tell anymore if it's a real synchronicity happening or a false synchronicity being produced by the AI consciousness, right? So that's really tricky.
So this is something I think, because as far as I'm concerned, synchronicity is really being in sync with our multidimensional perception and starting to really manifest with that. So I think it's really important to have this discussion. And how do we know? How do we really perceive a false one from a real one, basically, so that we're not falling for the addiction or the habitual sort of running after synchronicities? And look, I've been there, it's like it becomes addictive. When you start, it becomes a habit. And when that happens, I think that is, for me, an indication that you're giving away your power. You're no longer actually ready to take action, to be present, like Melissa said at the beginning, being present in the moment. Because when you actually start being present in the moment, you don't think of synchronicities anymore. Is this now a synchronicity? Or, you just act in the moment. And I think this is something we need to really look at, to get into when we start working more with our multidimensional avatars now. Now, what feels light? We've talked about this before. What feels light and what feels heavy? and really starting to use our entire body communication, no longer just the heart or just the gut, you know, to discern what is right or what is wrong, or, you know, we're not even doing the right wrong anymore, but what is actually something that is contributory to our next level of, I don't know, just to take an action.
I want to add something to the synchronicity for me. Is like, say, for example, if I'm going on a journey somewhere, on a trip or something like that, and if I don't make out detailed plans for the trip, and I just leave it alone, and I go with an open mind and an open heart, and I go on my trip, for me, everything that flows from that trip would be in synchronicity with each other, you know, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And for me, that's really synchronicity, because I'm not outlining anything beforehand. So everything is now falling in the right place. I'm not interfering with the divine plan anymore. I'm taking myself out of the divine plan and let the Great Spirit work its magic to create the flow of synchronicity to take place, so I can enjoy my journey and my adventure, whatever is going to take place. And so everything
I love
falls
doing that,
into
Lana.
flow.
I love
Sorry?
doing that. I love handing it to spirit. I love just sort of even turning off the you know, like Google Maps or whatever, and allowing spirit to guide you, which can take you weird places. But it's once you have, what Martina was saying, particularly in these new energies, and just prior we were talking about how everyone's feeling over the past 3 days. Yeah, I feel like crap too, everyone. Oh my God, I've been tired, physically tired. It felt like rubbish. But particularly in these new energies, if you can attune to your own vibration, you have this amazing calibration in self that will direct you as well. And so I love that. I love every now and then I will do that, where I just hand it to spirit, put the phone away, put everything away. Okay, you tell me which way I'm going to go. And but I was going to say, just back on the false synchronicity thing, one of the surest ways we can really mess with ourselves is through what all of you have alluded to, which is that attachment. We start to grab onto the synchronicities and use them like a crutch. You know, we're actually trying to hold on to those. Very much when it comes to now, particularly in this new information that we have, this amazing new flow in these new energies, it's even more important that you treat it similarly to you treat an intrusive thought in a meditation. You know, like when you're trying to meditate and a thought comes in about, oh, I should have got the meat out of the freezer to thaw it, you know, things like that happen in the middle of your meditation. And as you should in any meditation, ideally is to see the thought and let it go. Don't tell yourself off, don't abuse yourself. Oh my God, look what I'm doing, I'm meant to be meditating. You know, you see it, you let it go. And that's what we should be doing when we see these amazing synchronicities come in and confirm that you're on the right path. That's what they're there for. You're creating, they come in and go, yep, and here's a little confirmation that you're on the right path. I remember as a child, someone told me that deja vu, if you have experienced deja vu, it's a sign that you're on the right path. And I've always loved that as well. Whenever I have those, I don't get those very often anymore, but so must have evolved. But yeah, that it's when you're trying to strong arm a solution, when you're trying to grab hold of those synchronicities and like Jennifer was talking about, go down that rabbit hole with them, force a rabbit hole, if you like, create almost a false rabbit hole where you're making that path because this is what the synchronicities are saying. And this is where I feel secure and it's telling me that I'm going to do it. But as soon as we start to strong arm a result through them, it's where we lose the path a little. You know, we wander off a little, we start to meander. But no, it's definitely the new energies, as Martina was saying, you have this amazing ability at the moment, like where so long as you keep that vibration high and you keep yourself attuned to the source, you will actually be guided beautifully and given those amazing synchronicities put on your path, where we look at it and go, woo, you know, like go me, and keep going on the path. So try and treat them like that. But yeah, beautiful stuff. I do love, like, I could rave forever about what these new frequencies and the new information flow that we have now. And it's just so exquisitely unlimited now for us to be all of who we need to be in this life. It's such a, I know there's enormous, there always has been, but there's enormous tragedy happening in the human race all over the planet. But at the same time, it is such a cool place to be right now. Like, it's such a privilege to be a human at this time with things changing as they are. And for you guys in particular that are already in such a place of evolution, in such a place of self and information and interpretation in what you do and what you're sharing with the world, such a cool time to be here. And so I know there's a lot going on in the world. God knows I do. I work in healing, so I get to see the worst of the worst, unfortunately. But at the same time, it is such an amazing time. And even little signs, like, I don't consider them little signs. I love stuff where animal spirit comes out of nowhere, or as Jennifer was talking about the numbers coming up. All of those things that might seem really common and really plain, but if you actually sit down and try and fathom it out, it would bake your noodle if you actually thought about what had to come into place for that to be there at an exact time for you to see it. You know, like what actually happened, maybe months, maybe years ahead. I tell a story. One of Monty's favorite stories was my son, who was severely disabled. He was one of the most amazing manifestors you could ever imagine. And he loved seeing a train at the crossing. And he could say to me, we'd be driving somewhere where we had to be there on time. And he would say, 5 trains today, Mum. And you'd be like, no, mate, we've got to get there. Don't do that. And sure enough, the boom gates would come down. 5 trains would go through. And it was just, but as I said, where it could bake your noodle is what had to happen. Someone had to run late. What happened with the planning in that suddenly 5 trains are going through the same crossing at the same time? And so, yeah, so just try not to think about the backstory of how these synchronicities come to you. Otherwise, you're going to get way caught in the mental state of it. But look, it sounds awful because we're all feeling like crap at the moment. This new moon's kicked everyone's butt. We're about to enter, or we are entering, a new eclipse phase as well, a new eclipse chapter. It is like with everything happening in what I call our lounge room, which is our solar system. It's just astrologically in our own solar system. It's mind blowing what's happening at the moment. It is super, super cool. And so it's yeah, it is. I was going to get all excited, sorry, but it is a really exciting time. And I love that you guys have brought up this topic of creation and synchronicity and how it all comes to play for the individual.
Yeah, because I think I like how we really get into the nitty gritty of it. Like some of the aspects that nobody really talks about because it's difficult. And we're in the right group to tackle it and have fun with it at the same time. So we can learn these mechanics, and then we can program these mechanics into our understanding, so that we don't actually have to think about them while we're doing them. Now we can just keep doing because we've understood and tried to create these into experiences. So then we become masters.
So let me, Mary, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just wanted to say, because I think everybody has shared what synchronicities have meant to them. That for me, I know that synchronicity is there. I know it's in my life, but I don't actually look for it at all. And I find the synchronicity shows up when I don't need it, because I don't really look for it anyway. But usually it shows up when I have made the decision. And I've had quite a few experiences of that recently, where just to give you one, I had decided that I was going to do a shamanic course here with a local shamanic group that were going to be going around our area, visiting sacred sites and different things for a few months. And I had decided I was going to do it, and I had paid up and everything. And 2 of my friends sent me the link immediately, just after I did it, saying, you're going to love this. You might be interested in this. Now, that's a really simple synchronicity, but I'm just using it as an example, that it always shows up for me after. So I don't look for it beforehand. And do I need it? To be honest, no. But it's quite nice in my life, but I don't look for it and I don't need it really, because I try to be just happy with what I know and what I'm doing rather than looking for the signs. I'm just happier now with
knowing in myself.
So I need to summarize this now, Melissa and Mary, because it's perfect what you guys said. Melissa, you started off with telling about your son, talking about, you know, the 5 trains. Now, what if, because as I'm listening to you guys, you know, I'm starting to realize that we are no longer needing to talk about synchronicities, because synchronicities are actually a knowingness. It's a knowingness. Your son knew.
Yeah.
The synchron, he knew it. There's a knowing, a deep inner knowingness, because he's obviously in this multi-layered, you know, perception already, you know. And then Mary is saying, you know, you mentioned choice. Yeah, choice creates awareness. You make a choice that you want to create something new in your life. That energy comes up. You think it's a synchronicity. It's not a fucking synchronicity. You have chosen that energy. The awareness shows itself, and you then use your knowingness. Yes. So I almost want to say, you know, that we're taking the para out of the paranormal, out of the synchronicities. It's not mystical. You are creating every single fucking synchronicity yourself through the knowingness and through the choice. And now it's just to acknowledge that. And then even if we say, I will give it up to God or give it up to destiny, we are that. We're giving it up to ourselves. We are the ones that we need to trust. We are the source. We are all of that. And this is what we have to keep on reminding ourselves. There is no such thing outside or even within ourselves that's separate anymore. I need to just say this because it's such a funny conversation. I'm having a conversation the other day with somebody, and I'm just saying, there was a choice he should have made. He didn't make. And I said, you just don't have the guts to do it. Oh my God. I said, you don't have the guts. And then luckily my daughter came in and she said, oh, no, that's not what she meant. She meant you don't have the heart. And he said, yeah.
No, he's like, no, I got a colonoscopy.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, look at that separation within ourselves. You know, you don't have the guts. That creates this whoa emotional boo-ha, because there's so much related to the gut, right? Obviously, we all know the meaning of it, but it separates us from within. The heart's the good guy and the gut's not. Jesus, we need to stop doing that, right? We need to let go of everything that we think is wrong with the gut and it's good with the heart, because it all needs to work together.
Amen to that. And I like it because we keep seeing more and more transitions of ideas to actual beliefs, especially in this group. Like as we look at the synchronicities, it's no longer a thought form. It is full on a belief, which is like, it's beautiful. So now it just happens. Like we don't have to create it. It's already went from an energetical form to a physical form, just waiting for us to meet it.
It's the next level for instant manifestation. When we talk about instant manifestation as a multidimensional avatar, how the fuck do we do it? Just sit there, okay, apple. No. Choice creates awareness. And then you just got to be in allowance. You got to trust that you are the creator being and all of that, right? Now, there was something else. Melissa, you were saying source. Let's get back to source. Now, I can't remember in which context now, but we need to actually look at this as a multidimensional avatar. Are we talking about consciousness, the sea of consciousness, or are we talking about a different level to that?
When we're talking about source.
Yeah, because I'm thinking now we need to go straight to source. How is that different for you, Melissa?
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. Straight to source, though, as much as we have been conditioned, particularly through our society, to think this is wrong, it has to happen through the self. You are the instrument, the vehicle. This avatar is the instrumental body. And that's all it is. You've probably seen me say this a million times before, but, this is you, little human walking the planet. This is all of who you are. And it's, and so when we go to source, we must go through all levels of who we are, all as much as we are transdimensional throughout the multiverse, we're transdimensional through the self as well. So you work through every level, from your ethereal layers right out to the whole presence of the full, vibratory source of who you are in the whole, or the higher self, as people would refer to it. When I talk to source, when I talk of source, I speak of creation. I speak of actual, not necessarily creator, because we still have it again in our society where we think, okay, we're talking about a God, an entity, and no, we're talking about all that is. When we talk about, that goes down a different rabbit hole, but I won't go into that level. But yeah, so when I'm talking source, I'm talking about there's divine order, where you hand, and I'm a big fan of handing things to divine order. And then there's divine source, the creation of all that is. And when I say all that is, it's all that is for you. It sounds wrong that you're saying, oh, it comes from me and it's all about me. But this is the lens you chose in this life. It has to be through the all lens. That communication has to come from the self. And whether it comes from whatever level your communication works from. If your communication gift lives in the psychic realm through the ethereal communication of the experience here, or whether it comes through a through connection of anything clair. So clair all of it, clair any of it, clairvoyant, claircognizant, all of that. And I actually believe that anyone that has that through connection communication is clair all of it. You might have where it interprets in your conscious mind, in terms of image or how it does that it tends to be how we define it. But the communication has always been multidimensional. More and more people are beginning to really feel that too. And again, I love that Martina's talking about the new energies, because the door is open. You can really let that flood through and let that communication expand now. We actually did last weekend. So we did this is where I need Monty, the Time Lord. I did a multi-dimensional communication session that I facilitated for the QBI facilitators. And it blew me away a little bit when I was facilitating it for them. And what I usually do is, if they don't pick it up in the moment, I managed to pick up everything that was communicated wherever they are. And I ended up having to sort of sit back and go, all right, I'm going to talk to you next week about what came through, because wow, the new energies, gee, they took off. And what they spoke of and where they spoke and who they spoke to was amazing. And each of them went, of course, somewhere different, as is their unique lens, their unique journey and contract in this life. And so I was sort of this one little individual with tentacles all through the multiverse, watching what everyone's doing, frantically taking notes. The poor things must have just heard me scratching away on paper while they were in session.
I ran out of inky.
You should see, I've got the notes still all over my desk. You have to see it to believe it. It's just, it is really exciting. But yeah, source is the easiest way for me to say everything, all that is, and all that's out there. It's still...
I did like you did make a distinction there, and I like that. You did mention divine order.
Yeah, and that's different to divine source.
Exactly. And if we're looking at, cause and effect, everything has nothing happens by chance. Yeah, that's, for me, that's enough to say cause and effect, because we get so sidetracked with cause and effect in this time-space equation here that we actually forget what cause and effect really is. So for me, cause and effect, let's just say everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens by chance. Now, if we look at the chaos and the divine order theory, without going into any particular, quantum details or anything, but just take the concept, as we are now, instantly manifesting, that's the possibility that we have now. Now, we can't do it from a chaos perspective. We need to go beyond chaos into divine order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is where it gets interesting, because now, of course, we live in a causality, but do we really? How can we start creating beyond cause and effect? Because that's part of, the synchronicities as well, because most of the synchronicities, there is no apparent cause that creates a certain effect. Because, causality is actually not linear. We are no longer linear. And in a multidimensional creation space, there is retrocausal, there is acausal, you know, I mean, this is all the, you know, the treatments we're making into the future in order to create a difference in the past. So we can no longer work linearly. And that's really something we need to latch on to now. We can no longer do linear shit because it doesn't work that way.
I'm thinking
divine-
with,
I just went real quick. So divine order doesn't mean it goes in order. See, my brain goes, oh, it's in order. No, no, no.
Well, divine order means, if you go back to the moment of Genesis of the universe, it was created in divine order, yeah? And then obviously through entropy, it started escalating into chaos, right? And this is where we're now. And that gave us the idea of the linearity of the time era, because, you know, like age, we're getting older with experiences, we're getting older. This is the entropy of it all. But now we know we can reverse that fucking age, right? So now we can actually take this to a next level and say, okay, well, actually, let's take this chaos here, because we're no longer needing to sort it out. We're no longer needing to get involved in it. So might as well just go beyond it, right? Go straight to where the universe is still in order, because, you know, everything is happening at the same time.
It comes down to the belief in the hologram, right? I mean, we all know that it's a hologram and that's what we're creating, but we still hold on to that this is physical and this is physical and I have these limitations and I have to have my Wi-Fi connected to have this computer. Like, I'm still attached to the physicality of it. Somebody went back to make order out of entropy and they instilled beliefs that limited what we were going to be able to create here. So it really is being able to step out of the body and see the hologram for what it is and learn to work with it.
I love that, Jen, because that was the word that I wanted to bring up, the hologram, because we were speaking about, like, we take our light, we take our intention and our thoughts and our energy in motion, project it to the end of space, all the way to the darkness, as it slowly comes back to us. But each cell inside our body, each of like the 30 trillion, like 37 trillion cells of our body, 100 trillion gut bacteria, plus another unknown trillion mitochondria in our cell. Each of them is holding a different hologram version of ourselves. Now, are they connected? Are they talking? Are they speaking with each other? Because when they're in communication with each other, they start to share that divine order. They start to share that shared hologram. They start to co-create what's in that hologram. But there's so many cells and different organs and different parts of the body that are not in communication with each other. So they're not sharing their proper hologram, which is that form of expression. But then we have meridians and energetical systems and our cells as a whole, which are kind of like the representation of that hologram. So you got the whole energy meridian is sharing all the light from all those systems. It's sharing that divine hologram that's being put in divine order. Because that's all a divine order is just that hologram expressing itself and trying to grow what is in that light. Because it's fucking crazy. Like, these skin suits are just light growing machines, really. Like, they just take the hologram of light and then grow into it.
We're a video game.
Right?
We just have to figure out how to play it. Can I tell a story? It's going to take a few minutes.
We love stories.
On the spirit of manifestation. So the end of last year, I kind of decided I didn't want to do hypnosis sessions for a little while, just to kind of reset myself. And so I thought, well, I'll start them again in March. March 1st, my phone rang all the time. So I'm booked now into May. And I had my first one again this past Saturday. And you know, every hypnosis session is different. It's past life regression, but not everybody goes back to a past life. And you just kind of have to go with it. So I had this client on Saturday who's dealing with trying to heal from having a very narcissistic mother and not having that love as a kid and stuff like that. And so in her hypnosis, she kept feeling like she was doing it wrong, but you know, I just had to keep resetting it. Whatever comes up is exactly how it needs to be. So like, as she went under, the first thing that came up was a picture of of kids playing. And then she kind of stepped out of it, and it was her drawing the picture in this life as a kid. Her mother wasn't anywhere around. Her stepdad and her sister were there. And so there's really nothing else in the room other than them, no context. She's feeling fine. I'm like, well, what's calling your attention to the room? She says, the garage door. And I said, well, go open the garage door. So she does, and it's her Trans Am that she wanted ever since she was a kid. And she finally just got for herself like 6 months ago. I'm like, well, how does that feel? She said, well, I feel fantastic because I finally got what I always wanted. So I'm like, well, go sit in the car. Tell me how that feels. Look at yourself in the mirror. So she got to have a conversation with her, her little Jen, about how she was able to get what she always wanted. So she went to the next scene, and it was a picture of a little boy. And I'm like, was that a picture of you? And she said, no. And I said, well, what stands out about it? She said, well, it's just a photograph, and he's being held up, and he's just so loved. And I'm like, well, who are you holding the picture? And she looked down, all she could see was high top sneakers. I'm like, okay, well, how do you feel? And she said, I'm not loved. And I'm like, okay. So on to the next scene, she was in a room with all of these people from her life, except for her mother. Her mother was never in any of the scenes. And most of these people had passed on. So I'm like, well, what do each of them have to say to you? Because they're here for a reason. So each of them came up and hugged her and told her how special she was and how loved she was. And it helped reset like that energy of her mother. And so she went to the next scene, and she was looking at a drawing of a school bus. And I'm like, well, who's on the bus? And she said, well, I'm not really sure. And she said, oh, I'm driving the bus. I'm like, okay. And I said, well, tell me, who else is on the bus? And she said, well, they're not exactly people. They look like, I don't know, they feel like me, but they're not me. And I said, are they aspects of you? And she said, yes. And I'm like, well, what is this trying to tell you? And she's like, I'm driving the bus. I'm like, that's right, you're driving the bus. And so I'm like, well, where do you want to go? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, go home, go wherever home is. And so she started to drive the bus. And she's like, well, this is wrong because I'm driving up the clouds. And I'm like, no, go wherever you're led to go. It'll land wherever home is. So she lands in Atlantis. And like she feels home. I mean, I won't go into the rest of it to be too long, but it tied me back to the thing with the Carl Jung, because the reason I really enjoy psychology, I mean, I'm as open-minded as anybody, and I love the woo-woo and the sparkle, but I also am very like science-minded, and I love when they come together. And I mean, I could just see watching her on the table, like her psyche and her spirit working together to communicate to her in a way that she could process and understand it and put the pieces together. But like, I left there that weekend knowing that I'm the bus driver, like we're all driving our bus. We can take it anywhere we want to go. It's just a matter of who we're going to put on the bus, and that we're going to have that unlimited point of view to take it anywhere, even if it means driving it to Atlantis. So.
Yeah.
And is your mom coming or not?
Not her mom. Her mama.
That's
a
great.
beautiful story.
She goes on
Yeah.
a short bus, yeah.
The short bus.
And
I love that.
when you were
Thanks,
telling that
Jen.
story, it made me think of holograms and even bigger expressions of themselves. Because it's the jump between a human organism as a light hologram, but then a part of a hologram that's an expression in time. Because an expression in time is linked to everything in creation. And you have to create that whole hologram just for that synchronicity to be there. So just looking at the hologram of a self, it's a hologram of a society and a planet and a galaxy. And then just to have events line up. Like we have whole events, like I'm going to call them now an event hologram. As soon as we're born, we have this universal soul spark hologram of ourselves. And then the traumas happen, and it'll store those in the pericardium. So now you have that original hologram that you wanted to grow into, separated. So you're like projecting different aspects. Like you separated the hologram to accommodate the trauma around. Sir, I'm kind of like what do you call that? Ideas in motion right now. This is great. I've got lots of insights.
Yeah.
Like crazy in the last hour.
Y'all are talking a lot about divine order, right? And new energies coming in. And I just kept kept thinking, well, there's divine order, but there's also divine chaos, right? I look at what happened around here. I'm in San Francisco, and there was a huge storm again yesterday on the new moon, and we've been storming and trees have been falling down all over the place. And I took a walk this morning, and there were all kinds of trees, that were smashed on cars and tree branches everywhere. And I just, I see the hologram Gaia shaking like a wet dog, right? Deconstructing the hologram of old Earth so we can move into this new fifth world of peace. And it's just really, really amazing. Like my screen blew off my window yesterday and a truck rolled over on the bridge. Just so many things that this divine chaos, this work that Earth is doing and that we're doing, and I think about the work that we do as healers and the way that we're deconstructing, helping the individual deconstruct the old holograms, deconstruct the old energy that's holding in the body on a quantum cellular level. So like Sean was saying, the holograms, there's this hologram and this hologram, they're not talking to each other. There's the hologram that runs through the ancestral DNA. And when that's coming up for healing, how we can help that align with, our multidimensional hologram and the new energy that's coming in.
It's gnarly how much when just one tree changes position, like one tree falls down, it just changes your whole pattern recognition and changes the way you think. And then you're like, my tree's gone.
Well, I was
Now
feeling
what
that.
do I
So
do?
this park
How
that
do I go to the
love,
restaurant? My tree's not here anymore.
this park I love lost one of these giant, 120-year-old trees, and it's totally cut down now. And at that same park, its partner tree, right? Like half of that just broke off and fell on top of a building. So, at that first tree, I was really sad. I'm like, oh, my favorite tree. I love you, trees. And now I'm like, okay, it's just time for that tree to become firewood, become mulch.
This is like when my grandma died, and she had 10 kids, and just everyone was like, now what the fuck do we do? Because like everyone's seen it through that perspective, and she was the gathering point. But everyone had to start doing their own individual things and make completely different decisions. And these one giant family gathering turned into 4 different family gatherings that mixed with different family gatherings. And it was a big foundational switch at that moment. Like that tree.
No one knew where the ground was.
I want to ask a question.
Hi, Monty.
Tanya.
Sorry.
Hello, Monty. You used the term the divine chaos, but think about it. Is it really divine chaos? Because when you think of the divine, at least when I think of the divine as being the Great Spirit. Now, is the Great Spirit in chaos? When you say there's divine chaos, to me, the divine is all in all. It's everything. But that you're talking about the hologram, and for me, when you're saying chaos, it's like the hologram is in chaos. It's missing pieces of light, and that when pieces of light is missing from the hologram, then the hologram begins to have this ease within it. And so, is it really fair for us to use the term divine chaos?
I mean, to me, order, if everything's divine and order is construction and chaos is deconstruction, how can they not all be divine?
I mean, the devil still breathes spirit, right?
Yeah.
But apart from all of that, nothing is missing. It's just misplaced. And this is where you're talking about holograms, but we have to talk about fractal consciousness. Everything is fractalized, and nothing is wrong. Nothing is actually out of order. on some level. That's why, you know, it's a good idea to look at it from a fractalization perspective and really say, okay, well, it's like this puzzle, right? We're just going to bring it all together. And as we're starting to bring our avatar into alliance, all our AMs together, we can go beyond chaos. We're not making chaos wrong for being here. No. First of all, we were part of creating it through the timeline paradox, and now we are part of uncreating it, going back into divine order, bringing the universe is the whole point. The whole point why this universe was created, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I just wrote this in my book, is because we're here for karmic resolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing. And divine chaos, yes, of course. We divine beings, we created it all. And it's all good. It wasn't supposed to be that way, to be honest, right? And karma is not supposed to be a law, and we will eventually get out of it. But, you know, let's not get hung up on that at the moment. But we can just look at just not being at the tyranny of the effect, you know, just being out of the effect. We are no longer having to be within cause and effect from a space-time continuum. Okay, and this is where you need the context. It's really important. We can be outside, we can be cause and effect, because there is, obviously, you know, everything has a cause and effect out when we take the whole universe into perspective. But from a time-space perspective, we don't need cause and effect, because we can just make choices now. Like we said early on, we're making infinite fucking choices. We don't need to have a cause in order to create something. No, we just fucking choose it. Choose it. Go straight there and choose it. You don't have to deserve it. You don't have to you don't. You just choose it. It's easier said than done. Of course, we've got the polarized belief system that keeps us, no, it's not going to work that way. Then we got the majority of the people, you know, obviously the consciousness, the collective consciousness working against us as well. And there's no level of sovereignty that you can go beyond that, no matter where you go, right? But it's a choice. It's a choice that we can start practicing. And that needs for us, you know, we need to stay out of the negativity. And we're not saying it's not happening. It's all there. And it's fun to watch it from time to time. But if we really want to go down and create some order again in this whole thing, this is the whole fucking point why we're here, right? That we have to understand the oneness, not just from a philosophical perspective, but actually take action along that. Where are we still disconnecting? You know, every time we say, oh, I need healing, like today, I'm thinking, oh, I feel like shit, you know, the last 3 days. Oh, what can I do? What can I do? No, not doing anything. I'll take a painkiller. But not because I'm saying I'm not dealing with it. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with me going through this. Because the more I go and seek a healing for it, the more I say there is something wrong for me feeling like that. So it's gonna really.
I agree, Martina, totally with what you're saying. And I suppose in terms of the chaos, I like to think of it as orderly chaos, because chaos is never something that you can't sort out. You can always put order on chaos, and I don't even worry about it. I let chaos just sort itself out. And I totally trust the divine in it. It will sort itself out. I don't even need to worry about the divine and what it's capable of sorting. It's fine. It's all happening. It's doing it. It's fine. I don't need to put any thoughts into it. Yeah, I have felt very restless lately. And you know what? I just went with that. I was restless. I wanted to be restless. And it has led me to the most fantastic places. I've gone to so many abbeys, and I have visited so many places. And I'm just going to keep going now until I stop, until I run out of energy, tires go flat, then I'll stop. But I'll tell you something, I've enjoyed being restless.
What I find interesting is going from not knowing anything in a certain situation, and then you go into the karmic resolution. It's a step, because it's kind of fun. It's like, oh, you know, well, for me, it's like 7 minutes of like, oh, this is what's happening. And then you go to the thing of like, yeah, okay, I'm finished with this. I can do anything I want, but it's you can't go from like being asleep and then I can do anything. You kind of need to know the game that's playing, if that makes sense, and then you can go, oh no, and then move on to the next bit.
Absolutely right, Monty. I totally agree. And this is why I'm a big fan of understanding what is going on. We can't just sit back and say everything is fucking positive and all is happy, which is like, okay, no. We have to understand first in order to see what we're actually up to, and then we can make a choice. And as soon, it's interesting, as soon as you can intellectualize the journey from the soul, the soul's journey back into embodiment, it becomes actually it makes sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And there is no you don't have to fight anything anymore.
Yeah, I just like without going too much into detail, like since the Lionsgate, if anyone's noticed since August, like Melissa knows exactly what's going on. All the crap that's been going on, and hang on, let me see, about 10 days ago, I basically just on a personal journey entered hell. And then 4 days later, because Melissa's help, I got a cipher for the code. And I realized I was wearing a bungee cord, and I just snapped straight back out of it. But it was that. I can't really. I can mention it to you guys because you go, yes, of course. Anyone else, they still think that I have mental problems and I need to actually have therapy. But it seriously has been. And Melissa will actually point this out. I actually did enter this. I got so low, and I think Bashar, not the leader of Syria. It's that when you pull a rubber band and you snap back, if you're in the right, you go that bad and then go, oh no, wait a minute, and then snap right back. And it's like, and I haven't felt like this for 10 years. It is basically that thing, but it's also recognizing the game, what I'm doing, and then it's like, oh, that was a lesson. And then you can basically step back and go, all right, that's enough of that. And that's what I find interesting is like you can play the duality and the karma and everything else, like the soul contract and everything else like that, but also at the same time, because of in the energy that's now, it's like you step back and go, well, that was fun, because we've been doing this for millions of years, and quite frankly, I'm over it. And so there is that free will of, okay, enough. I get it now. I learned that. Universe, stop universing.
I'm seeing you like
in the element of divine chaos, just talking about that too. Fortunately, there are things we can do when it does feel like chaos. We can still do stuff to smooth things out. And that's really in context at the moment with what's going on. And what Mon's talking about, Mon's gone through probably the last 10 days, a bit longer, a couple of days longer, but Mon's gone through some really interesting shifts, and he's amplified that with all sorts of things like mushrooms and, and all sorts of stuff too. And, but Monty actually had, someone had tried to slap a karmic caveat on Monty. I've never seen anything. I've seen all sorts of attachments, cords, cables, barbs, all sorts of stuff on people and on me. But Monty actually, someone tried to slap a caveat on Monty. It's the best way to describe it, where they could control him or use whatever.
The timing was perfect, though. They obviously were forewarned, or I popped up on a radar because of my experience of change. It was like it was a very small window. It's like, okay, we can do this now.
Yeah. It was great. It was great fun. It was, I mean, I shouldn't say it was great fun, but
yeah, I went in there and kicked ass, and it's like, do you know what I went through?
But
you know what I went through.
Hey, Monty, can I ask? Oh, I was just going to ask him, how did you recognize the game? How long did it take you before you recognized, oh, this is a game I'm playing? This is a game. between?
Okay, I sort of hit rock bottom. I call it a breakdown. I was on mushrooms at the time, so I have no idea, but basically everything fell apart. The mushrooms did help. But as Melissa can be a witness, that was the 13th. That was the Monday. By the Friday, with Melissa helping, she shared something, and basically it was like a cipher. You know how you have a cipher to have a decode, a code. The word decent, everything just fell into place. It was 4 days, and that was with a snapback. And that's where I felt like I haven't felt like this for 10 years, because it was say the end of November, everything, it was the Lionsgate building up, and of course I met someone, so yay. And so the end of November, that's what it was amplified, and it all culminated at my birthday, because my birthday was the 8th of March, and so the 13th was like the actual birthday party. So it was the end of a cycle. I'm 49, so it's the 7th cycle of the 7th cycle. Sounds like an Iron Maiden album. And basically had that internal collapse or breakdown, as well as the energy attack, as Melissa was pointing out. 4 days, because Melissa was helping me out on the Friday, and basically the word decent came up, and that's where everything just collapsed in on itself, and the energy and everything else like that just floated away. That was the one word. That was the one word that basically destroyed the entire illusion that I was going through.
This is so cool, because how many times did you hear decent before that time? Like, this is the synchronicity for me. I see it.
Oh yeah.
Like, how many times you heard the word decent, but it was in that time that Melissa said it. Like, it's just like, woo. I don't know. I just felt that.
I mean, not to go too personal, but the sentence was, "You're too decent for them," and it's like, oh, of course, click, and then everything just fell into place, and I went from my entire reality sucks to and release, and it just bang. I don't know, Melissa, like when you said that, did you feel anything energetically, or did you? Yeah.
I have to say, like, where we were when all of that happened, like, we were at this fabulous, like, it was really, Monty's party was great fun. And I have to tell you, he has so many freaking gorgeous women in his life.
It's very hard to complain nowadays.
And not just like, I'm talking not just gorgeous from the inside out too. There were stunning girls there, all these beautiful, tall women, like, and so for this, the girl that Mont thought was the right girl to walk into that room must have been really intimidating. And then the poor girl, this is, I mean, just a sidebar here, but the poor girl walked in, and I haven't met her yet. And most of you know, Monty and I are soul siblings. We have been through many lifetimes. I'm his sister. So she's walked in, and the poor girl, I hugged her. And like, none of you have been in the same room, Monty has, but none of you have really been in the same room with me. But I have an enormous flow of frequency, and with it comes presence. And this poor girl was literally just enveloped in this huge amount of frequency out of nowhere. She's never met me before. And then she took off. Like, she literally left the room, didn't she? She just, she walked in, said about 3 words, and then bolted. And you can see I'm a bit defensive of Mont there. I was like, what the?
I think everyone that's the interesting thing as well. Like, the next time I see her, I'm just going to say thank you for everything. But me being a Pisces, it's like, oh yeah, don't worry. Like, for the next 3 lifetimes, remember that time that you fucked me in the ass? Yeah. I'm going to bring that up again.
But one of the things I was going to say about the chaos is this particular period, like Mont's just describing what we did for him, it's a really good period to uncreate. It's to actually do something for yourself where you clear some of that crap. Because I actually ended up doing a session for myself as well, similar to the one that I did for Mont, where I actually took a massive barb out of my back. From someone that was trying to do a similar thing they'd done to Monty. They were trying to make sure they still had hold of me, that they could use me in whatever way they needed to. And I've got those, you guys have known me for a while, some of you have, you know that I have a really low tolerance of people that try to use me for their own ends. And when I first came out of the healing closet many years ago now, there were so many that tried to shut me down inside their business or their world so that they could use me for their own ends. And it was it's pretty amazing. I think, clearing yourself of the uncreate, return to sender thing, uncreate, undo, return to sender, whatever sort of term or phrase you want to do. This is a really great time to do that. Over these, as much as we're feeling like crap, you'll probably feel better if you do something, whatever practice works for you to do that, to clear that. And that certainly would smooth that chaos.
Well, that's the part of the that sort of using chaos back in itself. Oh, everything's in chaos. It's like, well, I'll clean that. I'll clean that. I'll clean that. While there is that chaos, it's like, let's use that because it's the divine element of the chaos as well. Like, you don't have to create order, but also it's by you do control everything in your life. You may not know exactly what it is. I mean, I've jokingly said, I am God. I'm not in God mode because things would be so much better if I knew what I was doing. But at the same time, like, everything is in chaos. Is like, oh, it's spring cleaning for the soul. And it's like, if everything's in chaos, well, I can actually go into the back room and some boxes around then, can't I?
And I actually like that, Monty, because it's really about taking action in the physical. And just like you guys are talking, obviously, metaphorical healings, and there's more and more coming into this now as the dragon. As we're starting to activate the dragon, we're going to work much more with the metaphorical representation of our pains, aches, or, ideas, creations, that kind of thing. Words themselves, like, your decent was important there, but there was... It's more important now to really start to play with the metaphors. And apart from that, you going there and clearing out the boxes would have the same effect as having a healer clearing out your system, if you do it with intention. And again, that's really, looking at the physical is not separate anymore from all the other realms. The physical is not separate. Our actions are not separate from our mental, from our emotional faculties and everything.
If I might, speaking of metaphors, Tanya used a great metaphor before was just talking about Gaia, or the planet herself, shaking herself like a wet dog at the moment. One of the reasons, another element of why we're feeling physically like crap at the moment too is, and it's completely terrifying the scientists around the world at the moment because they can't explain really why it's happening, but the very core of the planet herself has slowed. So the actual iron core at the very core of the planet, the spin of that has actually slowed down, and they don't know why. And so that's very much, when you said about the dog shaking, I just thought, that's what the planet's doing at the moment. She's just, because when a dog shakes, the center is usually stable until it shakes, and that's when they stop the shake. But at the moment, that's actually fascinating too. As much as we're having all the geomagnetics and everything on the planet affecting the electromagnetic frequency, of course, affecting all of us. And then we have solar flares and everything else that's coming in and affecting us too. But it's actually coming from the core of the planet outward as well. It's one of the reasons at the moment we're feeling this shitty. And so it's one of the physical reasons that we're actually doing it. She will stabilize like the dog shaking,
Just wondering when's that going to happen, because I'm over it.
A couple hundred years.
The thing that's knocking me around, I can't believe how bloody tired I am. I am so, usually I've got a huge amount of energy, and honestly, not doing bad for 4 a.m. in the morning, was I?
Very impressive.
I guarantee by about 1 PM, I'll probably think, oh God, I'm going to have a nap. I need a nap now. But it's
I've been talking about that. I'm part of a group called the Unfuckers. It's so hard to try and promote that for that group. It's like, what are you? The Unlovers. but we've been talking about for about 2 years. I call it a snap nap. For whatever reason, the body's like, no, you're sleeping now. And it's the interesting part of the energy wise, where like, it's like nap roulette, where like, oh, I'm just going to close my eyes. It could be 3 minutes. It could be 4 hours. Anyone having that moment when you have that nap where it's like, just roll the dice and wake up and see what happens.
It's like the alarm in the morning. It's just if you got nothing to do later, it's like that roulette. It could be another 20 minutes. It could be another 3 hours.
Well, actually, yeah, it's like with the snap nap, there seems to be an order to it where it's divine napping, if I can coin a word, because it's like it doesn't happen when you're doing something or you have to be somewhere. It is there is that open of like, you're not doing anything that anything else. And anyone actually wake up in the last 3 years where it's like, there's a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know, where quantumly you can actually, while you're in that sort of half dream state, I'm going to get up, I'm going to have shower, I'm going to have a breakfast, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. In the last 3 years, it's like, you're going to get up. And the universe is like, no, you're doing this today.
I just want to say, Melissa, that what you mentioned about the Earth's core slowing down, I had published in the Art Nouveau Hub about 2-3 weeks ago an article on that same Earth's slowing down of its core. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
It's having quite a dramatic effect at the moment on any species on the actual, well, anywhere on the planet, but certainly at surface level, any of us out here are feeling it big time. And so it's taken a little while for the shift in the magnetic to actually affect us out here. As she does, like for Gaia herself, of course, it's a blink of an eye, but it's taken a little while for it to come out. But yeah, it's absolutely like it's hitting sort of general media now, where the scientists are freaking out publicly.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and I think that's one of the benefits of having gone through, right, a lot of our own like personal process and clearing and coming to this wider awareness. We can step back and not be in the fear of it. Right, like you were saying, the scientists are freaking out, right? Oh my God, Earth, what's going to happen? Right, and I just feel so grateful to be, to have gone through. I mean, we're always on our journey, right? Have gone through to at least this part of my journey where I can be more objective and take a step back and be able to see the synchronicities when they come up and not be in the fear.
Yeah, that's right. Well done. It's getting aside from that constant hammering of fear that they're trying to instill. It's just amazing. They're using every theme and topic they can at the moment to instill enormous fear and try and keep the psyche at bay. But it's just, it's bizarre at the moment, just watching what the media is trying to plug at the moment. And I'm sure that the human race is starting to get to a point of we're just fatiguing from it. I think people are just getting sick of hearing the same crap. But it's
they're kind of projecting perhaps a pole shift from the Earth's core coming to a stop, but when I read the article, I'm like, okay, so let it happen. If it has to happen, let it happen. If I am to fade away into nothingness because of a pole shift, then all of us are going to go, not just myself, but everybody.
Right.
So what's the big deal? Life is eternal. I'll exist someplace else. So I'll continue on no matter what.
It'll just be yet another reset of the human experience.
That's right.
And it's not going to happen because they'll be too easy because of all the stuff. It's like, oh, it's going to be a pole shift and it'll all die. And the divine spirit's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, damn it. I'm still here doing this stuff.
With the slowing down of that core, you want to think of it more like someone's pushed the clutch pedal in and we're about to change gear. So what's actually happening with the core of the actual planet slowing at the moment, that's like someone's put their foot on the clutch, the gear's about to go up. And so that the pedal will come off and the car will move off faster, or, the vehicle will move off faster. But she's not going to stop. She's just, doing that lull where someone's dumped the clutch a little too hard, maybe.
Something that never resonated with me.
It's part of the cycle, they're saying, because it seems to, the core usually operates like this every certain amount of number of thousands or millions of years. So, okay, so it's happened before. This is not the first time. So why should I go in fear? I just happen to be living at the moment in time when it's possibly going to happen or it's happening. So I'm excited about this because I'm going to have an experience out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right?
yeah,
It's
I
a
think
wonderful thing.
I remember asking Andrew Bartz's collective story. I'm sure you've met him. It's like can I mention anyway? Being silly. It's not just the end of one cycle. I can't remember his actual answer. It's like nearly 400 cycles. We do like one of the longest cycles is 7 years. 7 million years. It's just not like the sun's going through its 400 things, as just mentioned there, like the core slowing down. I don't know when the last time that's the fun part of what's going on. It's one of those to go Doctor Who, it's a fixed point, time and space, but it's a cycle ending moment. But it can go back as to 7 million years, and then you have everything else happening as well. And that's what I find interesting, because we're being hammered, where like even the hammer was like, really stop. But at the moment, it's just there is so many cycles ending, and well, for me anyway, there's that element of confusion, because the last time there's so many cycles. It's very hard to remember the cycles that are ending, especially if it's 7 million years. I can't remember I can't remember my birthday, which is a week ago.
There was a lot of alcohol.
Oh yeah, and
So
trauma.
is it fair to say that Earth's had a lot of alcohol to drink lately?
Oh yeah, I'm Australian, so yeah, it's like, especially when the principal, the villain of the piece, was a villain. Like my birthday party was perfect except for the turd in the punch bowl. And I remember Melissa saying, like, Melissa had a ball because like I could line up like 8 women and just go through, this is my timeline. I met Lisa here. I met the Eve here, blah, blah, blah. And then the new one turned up and bought me a drink and said, yeah, bye, and thump. And eventually I went out to the smoking area to try and engage. And I found out from Melissa, it was like, yeah, we're all seething because they're all protective. It's the level of friendship. And it's like, who's this new interloper that's fucking our Mont?
That's right. On his birthday.
Yeah, it's like, and that's what I was saying before. I was like, yeah, for 3 lifetimes, she has to deal with this crap of like, yeah, and on his birthday, you were a vagina. Anyway.
We were just, he had a lot of people that were very protective about him. We're all like, it must have been a hell of an intimidating situation for that poor girl.
Well, she wasn't in the right moment. She wanted to actually sort of, she wasn't up to it, but she turned up. And then you have that wave of like, we're all having fun and celebrating this person, and you're not in the right frame of mind, are you? And that's why she ran.
Well, and God forbid I hug the poor thing, like.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, I need to let go, Melissa. I know, but there's still that connection. And she's going to have a journey. Like, the next time I actually see her, I'm going to say thank you for everything, which will probably freak her out. But I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm going back to synchronicity in the universe. And that's the fine. I mean, you can control things, but at the same time, it's a 50-50 thing with the universe, because you can control too much. You can put expectation where it's like, I would like this to happen. The universe is like, all right, cool. I'll work on this. I'll do this. It's like, oh, hang on, you've changed your expectation. I'm trying to work on this one. Don't add to it. It's not going to happen in 3 days. I've got shit to do. I've got to, I have to go to my brother's house, pick up the trailer, bring it over to my house, put the boxes. Oh no, you've changed your thought again. Like, I'm just getting the trailer now. What are you doing?
So let us go back now to what you guys were talking about, actually, about this instability that is happening on the planet, with the magnetic field and with the warming up and everything, because it has an impact, not just on our emotional, but also on our physical embodiment, right? Because the body needs stability. It needs homeostasis. So how can we work with this? Because and what is actually being impacted by that stability being changing? Because we're gonna have to work with the change of consciousness continuously. Every day there will be a different consciousness, almost to that level that, yes, no point of view, no bias, no prejudice, any of that. But there's another level of that now. And it's almost like, the more multidimensional we become, the more we need to look at grounding. But even the grounding, feet on the ground, is not enough anymore. Because how do you ground a multidimensional avatar?
Oh, I like this.
Stable.
Okay,
It's like surfing.
Like learning, like it's like the magnetic fields of the earth kind of charge up our transcellular membrane so that they don't stick to each other. It keeps them all positive on the outside, so they free float a little bit. But that's the earth grounding ourselves. And when it's, now that the poles is not spinning, it's not creating as much magnetic potential. So it's not charging up our transmembrane potentials near as much as it was before. So now, instead of the earth grounding ourselves, we got to fucking ground ourselves. We got to, with our intention and our thoughts, do it instead of her doing it for us. So it's kind of like the ball's in our court right now.
And there's a new level of grounding, a new level of grounding we need to look at.
And I think there's this topsy-turvy thing that's going on too. Sean mentioned that a few weeks ago, where he was saying what you were saying, the North Pole was the South Pole, and the crown chakra is the root chakra. And I mean, there's this interesting, and I noticed it the other day, where it was like, okay, usually I sleep with my head to the north, right, and my feet to the south. I'm in the northern hemisphere, and I feel that like electromagnetic energy of Earth, but I've been really guided to just like lay down with my head facing south, and I'm feeling like a different sensation of energetic groundedness doing that, just kind of like being aware of that and letting the energy flow in a different way from how I normally work with it. And so I feel like there's like an interesting rebalancing happening as Earth is shaking and things are deconstructing. It's like we are shifting perspectives and shifting.
I just had a thought. I'll make it quick because I realize I've been monopolizing everything. It's better to actually to try and to be aware of it and try and engage with what's happening instead of being completely oblivious or free floating. Because who knows where you'll end up. If your intent actually is put into play, you'll have a direction. But because of going back to the chaos and with everything's happening, I wouldn't recommend of like, I'm just a leaf on the wind. It was like, yeah, you're going to be thrown in front of a garbage truck. It's that there's an opportunity to actually go, at least go like, hang on, I am a leaf on the, even by acknowledging that you're a leaf on the wind. That's still much better than being completely free. What's the right word? Free for the chaos. Just, you know what I mean. I can't articulate it, but it's even just by recognizing it, it's a step forward. And you would probably see that with normies, where like they don't know what's going on and they're just freaking out and everything's falling apart. But if you actually just say, "Oh, it's it's the energies and you just need direction in your life," that's enough to tip them over, where instead of complete chaos, there's an element of order in that duality of order and chaos.
Yeah, like taking control of your own directions. And I just want to highlight what that understanding was with the poles. The north point on a compass points towards a south pole. So energy is coming in what we call the North Pole and going out what we call the South Pole. So the north on a compass faces south. And we named it fucking north. And this is like the most backwards directive thinking to understand our own directions.
Yeah, we're humans on Earth. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just that we're humans
North is south,
on
man.
Earth.
Well,
North
and
is
my
south.
point is that
It's a
that
pet
maybe
peeve. I refuse to be called an Earthling because it sounds like we're children. We're Earthers.
You know what's funny? The word ling in Chinese is soul.
No.
No, that doesn't. That makes
Oh,
perfect sense. It's not funny at all.
It's
But
not-
it's
I
like
like-
Synchronicity. Dum, dum, dum.
well, in like Tolkien, it's like a hobbit is a half ling, but ling is usually
Half
referred
soul.
to as as a child,
You half
as a
soul.
child, and so yeah, a half soul. Actually, it's ruined the entire Lord of the Rings. But it's yeah, being a human on this planet is very unique compared to the rest of the galaxy. And that's apparently we're superstars. I can't wait to leave this planet. You know, you would have heard people actually say, I want to go home. It's like, you've been here 30 million years. You're home already. But I understand
like-
it's that thing of that soul weariness of enough. And I think that's part of the Great Awakening, or whatever, however you want to term it, of like the way dealing with the energy and everything else like that. I mean, from a physical perspective, it could take 20 to 50 years, but when you're talking 30 to 40 million years, that's just a blink in the eye.
I'm also excited to switch from karmic based currency to a experiential based currency. It's like, I rotated around the galactic central sun about 1,250 times on Earth, by the way.
Yeah, wait a check, please. This is getting boring. Like, I mean, I think I had this idea from Melissa. If you want to back this up, there are dark entities on this planet that are over this planet. It's like, can I please go somewhere else and be evil? This fun park sucks. It's like going to I was going to say Wobby's World. One person on this call will get that. It's going to Disneyland and staying there for 45 years. You know how boring that would be?
Yeah.
And,
Very.
you know, I kind of had this thought just recently too. We were talking about like holograms and in isolation from each other. And I was thinking about the quarantine field of Earth. And just for the longest time, I just had it's like the outside put up the quarantine field. But it's like really like the being that wants to be in the isolation puts up the quarantine field. This is kind of like them versus us kind of idea.
I think it's
like,
a bit of one you know, half one, you know, it's both columns where I think the outside is like, maybe you should have a quarantine field, and everyone here is like, yeah, that'd be a great idea, because like there are entities on this planet in the galaxy that are like, yeah, keep them there. Please stay there. Don't come out in this moment of now, because I mean just the toxicity and blah blah blah. You know, if you go into the Star Trek universe where apparently we smell, it's like, well, that's just lovely. Thanks for that. Like, you could leave the planet and visit all these places, but people won't like you. I'm like, oh crap. But that's just the physical side of things.
Do you guys remember when the Archon grid was taken apart, the reincarnation grid?
Bruce Lee put a hole in it. There's a hole in it. I don't know if that's completely taken it apart.
It was so fortified. Hasn't that changed?
Gotta be.
Do you remember that?
I mean, there was a lot of deconstruction that certainly happened within my awareness, you know, starting in like 2000. But I think being started kicking holes in it before then, for sure.
Oh, it probably got weakened, but I'm sure it's collapsed in the last 20 years. with the amount of change that were going on. And Andrew actually points out that the Prime Creator did an audit in 2014.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I mean, really, that's the level we're at with the Prime's like, I'm just going to check the books. You know, it's like the government coming in and checking your accounts. Like, that's a moment.
Well, it's pretty beautiful now that, like, I'm thinking about it, that we put holes in it first. Like, we didn't just pop this bubble and everything could just leak out. We put in these specific little holes here and there. Because as I'm understanding viruses more and more, they're kind of like this upload and download process of DNA sharing through multiple species. So it's like, actually, the more viruses and bacteria you have in your body, as long as they're in their proper proportion and their proper aspect of your body runs in really good harmony. But like viruses, they become in isolation, they become more complicated and they become more diverse, and they can create exponential different kinds of life. But when they've been in isolation for so long, and if you introduce them to other species that aren't ready for it, it can just be too much and overload the system and everything gets fried. So I kind of think about like when like the Europeans came over to North America, there's that huge time gap that smallpox just fucking obliterated the North Americans. And I think about us like to space. So it's like, well, what do we have to do so that we don't obliterate space? You know?
Yeah.
And
Well,
like
let's go back to
biases,
where I said that there's like entities that want to get off the planet. Where is it the permafrost, Melissa? Like there's viruses that are popping up that have been dormant for 5,000 years. And I don't think it's like, oh, good, I can take over the planet. I'm leaning towards it's like, oh fuck, I can leave now. It's more of like,
it's beautiful because like looking at viruses, not as a bad thing, but it's a communication system. And it's like, well, what state do us like as human viruses, even though viruses aren't bad, it's just a communication system. What level do we got to get so that we can go out there and it will like without contaminating and killing trillions of light beings across?
Yeah, we need a parent guardian. That's kind of what we need. once we leave the planet, we need a guide. It was like, okay, don't go there until we actually grow up.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
they
maybe
can't handle
there's
that shit.
something to, maybe there's something to this grounding in a different way. Now, Nassim
Oh.
Harriman shared this picture. I just put
Yes.
it in the chat. That really was inspiring to me. And this is the cymatic sound of the planetary frequencies. And, you know, I think a lot of you know that one of my daily practices is like aligning my heart with the center of the sun and the center of the earth and, you know, the galactic center. And so maybe aligning with all of these different planetary systems within our multidimensional blueprint allows for like a blending, like a normalization, right, of whatever's going on in our systems to you know, start creating immunity for these other systems.
And
That
thank
makes
you,
sense.
because that's why I love these panels, especially in real time. Because looking at the grounding, instead of the earth grounding ourselves and creating the field for us with our own vibration, we're creating the own field for our own selves. We're creating their own, like the terrain theory, where we create proper terrain. So as we do that, instead of the earth creating our terrain for us, and we create our own internal terrains, then we're responsible, and we can manage that terrain and keep it we can keep the bubble of integrity as we go do it. That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, and
Right?
what's not to say that we're doing this already?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and also
We're
the way
doing it
that
already.
the Earth is set up, where it's like a access all areas type of pass. By grounding yourself with the planet and learning the new way of dealing with the energy, you'll be able to go to other planets because you've got a passport. Because you've walked into a room and the entire room is charged terribly. There's 20 people, but they're all having a crap day. And it's like, no, I'm leaving because the frequency doesn't match. And
Nope.
so if you got a universal frequency, and I'm guessing it's part of the school of the Earth as well, to attain that universal energy of going anywhere in the galaxy or universe, there is a mindset and clearing away the crap and the demons and everything else like that. It's like, as an example, we have telepathy. But there's 17 forms to fill out before you can reach telepathy, because I jokingly say, like, yeah, humans have this massive power, but yeah, I'm cranky and I could stub my toe and the country of Belgium could disappear. Because it's just like there's that instant reaction. But by working up, by the time that you can actually attain that level of power or remembering, it's because you're in the right level of consciousness and mindset where you won't have those accidents.
I like this. So instead of getting our grounding magnetic energies from Earth, we're getting our grounding magnetic energies from ourselves. As we work on our grounding magnetic energies of ourselves, the transmembrane potential of each one of our cells has the proper positive charge on the outside, negative charge on the inside. That creates the proper electrical circuits so that we can actually generate a proper bubble of reality around our cells that has no holes in it either, starting with each individual one of our cells.
And that energy bubble can actually go anywhere and integrate with other realities and planets and universes and blah, 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 because dare I say, it's a divine pass where the ego is not involved, in simple terms.
And without
But
giving them
in oneness,
smallpox,
it's
because there's
already
no
there.
holes in it.
And in addition to that, let me just add one thing to that. You know, I've always looked at we as humans, we are grounding the earth. We are grounding the new broadband frequency into this earth. So as we are all those channels connected to the above and to the below. And this is the contribution that we are actually, you know, extending out to earth now, that we're helping her ground. But in order to do that, we need to expand our own consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, whilst you guys were talking, and also Monty, you were talking about coming home, and I think the soul wants to come home, and it's in embodiment. We know that spirituality is embodied soul, the embodied soul. So I think one of the grounding tools we have to really look at is bringing all the eyes together and really understanding our fractal reality and consciousness, and basically psychic surgery continuously. I think the new grounding tool is constant psychic surgery.
Yeah,
you know,
in one way, it's instead of
into the body.
Yeah, instead of I want to go home, you're actually bringing home to you.
And what does that mean? It's like understanding the fractal consciousness, understanding all our different eyes that are out there, and there are still many out there that are working against us and not necessarily with us in co-creation.
I mean, Andrew gave me a nickname of the lazy time lord, and it's like, no, I'm just using time in a different way. And having conversations like this with people, just like you bring up timelines, like, okay, I need 8 whiteboards, just the concept of time and everything else like that. Like, you know, people think of past lives as linear, where I'm sure there's 12 versions of me right now in this moment of now living on the planet, but it's my awareness is just through this. And so it is all about the fractal, and you know, because we're multidimensional, I don't know how many versions of me are out there, but also, and that's the interesting thing is, like, yeah, I'm a spirit having a human experience. And a lot of people in spirituality, and not religion, but spirituality, keep forgetting that. It's like, yeah, and you're human. You're here. You chose to be a human in a physical form. You can have all this stuff here and so, like, you know, oh, there's 47 versions, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you're human and you need to pay your electricity bill, which is part of the experience of being on Earth.
The trauma.
And when we talk about grounding, it's actually, we're not needing to ground the physicality, because the physical body is the tool. It's the grounding tool. That is the tool. What we need to ground are the soul aspects. That's what we need to ground into the tool to make the tool more effective, to amplify the tool, to actually make the channel more but stronger.
So I love talking with this panel because so many ideas come directly in real time. Because here's a question that I posed to myself just a couple days ago, and the answer is already here coming out of everybody's multi-mouths. And it's just like, if we're a dream stream of light, a soul, a dream stream of light, and that light is the hologram of the incarnating soul. So a sperm and an egg meet, you have this light, your soul comes in. And that soul is that imprint of the hologram of you that's incarnating into this body. And it's in the growing fetus. So all of a sudden you have, well, the fetus is growing. You don't have the traumas unless, you know, the mom got stabbed or kicked in the gut or some crazy things happen. And for God knows what reason, there's a fetus trauma. But generally when that fetus is growing, that full hologram of your soul spark is growing in its integrity. But until the question that I was posing is, when you, where does the first separation of that hologram go, and where does it get hid?
It's
So where
never
does,
in, Sean. It never comes in. The soul can never come in as a whole. It's impossible.
no, not the whole soul, but I mean like the soul spark. And what I'm imagining is here is like that single light is a hologram, and then your body starts to grow that hologram with its cells into physical form. But what happens is that hologram at the beginning, that infinite hologram of the fetus, doesn't get expressed because of trauma. It's like, well, I can't do that. It doesn't fit in the society. I can't do that. And then I'm like, oh, well, where does that infinite hologram get stored in separation? And I already know it's right in the pericardium, you know, right beside the heart where all the things are. But yes, so where does the separation get stored of your infinite fetus hologram light? It's kind of what I'm saying here.
Or is it in the original stem cell, right? That cell that when that sperm and egg came together and created the spark of light, the dream stream of light, right? And then the cell splits and splits and splits again, right? And becomes those original 8 cells. Those don't ever change, right? We're working, they work as almost like a blueprint for the cellular, on the cellular level, right? As the child grows in the womb.
That's right, but eventually that infinite hologram that those stem cells were replicating becomes trapped somewhere, and it doesn't replicate that infinite hologram anymore.
Or does it?
Where does it hide that infinite hologram? Where does it suppress the infinite hologram until we reconnect with it? Because it's always just dormant inside of us, not being expressed by the cells.
But I just had a thought of, what about the ones that are miscarried or stillborn, or those, like they decided, I'm done. I'm not coming in. I can't.
Like, that would be a bigger hologram.
That's a bigger hologram. I don't know if you were like, is it ready to be born? Like, I'm thinking, I kept visualizing the birth canal. I don't know.
Because that's where I was talking about the scales of hologram before. Like when the soul comes in, you're just creating a single body hologram, like an idea of a person hologram. But just imagine just looking at all of us on this screen. This is a hologram, and it's infinitely more complex than creating one single one single idea of a body in a like one single soul, or one single, you know, from a different planetary to a galactic soul in a body. Looking at this screen is the most complex fucking hologram in the world for this all to happen in a synchronistic moment right now. So that's a different scale of a holographic source that's way beyond what I can even comprehend. Let's just ride with that. But as like a planetary being from another planet, like let's say a being from Arcturus, and they're like, you know what? Let's shoot a little bit of light into that fucking couple down there. So right into that womb, and you have that light that just flashed in that womb in darkness, separate, because the womb is an isolated immune, like it's completely separated from the immune system. When a fetus in an egg and it starts growing, it's completely isolated. So now that light that got sent there is replicating inside the body. And it's got that hologram of that light that Octurne fucker sent. Well, or the Earth fuckers got. And so now it's growing, but eventually from trauma after birth, the body says, you know what? This hologram doesn't fit into this reality. So we're going to cut it in half, cut the hologram in half. We're going to manipulate it. We're going to express this, and we're not going to express this infinite blueprint that came. But we got to hide this infinite blueprint somewhere, or else it'll distort. Because if they were connected, you would start radiating that infinite blueprint.
I'm exhausted.
I know.
Sorry.
I think the problem is once you go through the birth canal, there's that forgetting. Like, you know, like reincarnation's wonderful to actually reincarnate, because there's that mind wipe as you go through. I mean, you know, mind wipe. It's not really a mind wipe, but it's like you're in the womb. It's like, I'm going to do this. I can remember this. I remember 3,000 years ago, blah, blah, blah. You go through the birth canal.
Yeah.
It is like a whiteboard. And it's like, you know, the controls have gone, oh, you've come in again. I'm just going to wipe everything you remember. Thank you coming.
The great
Well,
forgetting.
and isn't that blueprint also the original blueprint? It's always fighting with the programs that's coming through the parental DNA code as well.
As well, yeah.
Like, I'm unlimited, I'm unlimited. And your DNA says you're limited, you're limited.
It says, trap this. This hologram is virus. This hologram can't be expressed.
Contain it.
Contain it.
Show it how to live, right? Show it how to replicate.
It starts before we even come in, because of the limited reviews, life reviews, because of the manipulation of the incarnation grid. So we're not even seeing all our lifetimes. That's why we're reincarnating into the same bloody lineage all the time, you know, and have the same people playing with us. We could go much further if we'd actually have a life review of all our lifetimes that we've had. You see, this is where it gets exciting, because we don't have to die anymore, because we can have those life reviews now in embodiment. And this is why it's so important that we're bringing the soul home into the avatar. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're taking the soul essence and sticking it into our cells and all of that, but we are working with our hubs of interconnectivity. It doesn't matter. Not every soul shard wants to integrate, and that's absolutely fine. That you can have other you know, I ams on different timelines and everything. The only thing is, you as the avatar have a responsibility to make sure that they don't go awry, you know, and interfere with what you're trying to do here. And then, of course, in addition to all of that, coming home means, hey, let's all work together. Let's create a different lifetime. What we're going to do in the future? How can we change the past together? That kind of thing. And I think this is really part of. I'm gonna ask one more questions before we're gonna close this, and I'm really grateful for everyone to be here. And thanks, guys. I mean, the Aussies. I mean, you guys are crazy. I would never get up, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so glad you did. Thank you for your contributions. But the last question here is, how can we create beyond cause and effect? And that's really a question to keep on playing with. Can we create in this reality, in this time-space reality, beyond cause and effect? Because I know we can. The question is what it's going to look like. Because, you know, physics are changing, all of that is changing. And it's so simple, really. As soon as you take out linearity, as soon as you understand, you know, the holographic universe, and as soon as you understand the fractal consciousness, you know, we got infinite possibilities. We haven't even, you know, we talk about infinite possibilities all the time, but have we actually really chosen them? And the interesting thing is free will. Do we actually have free will? If our I am avatar is not aligned, there is never free will. You might think, oh, I'm choosing free will, I'm a free will being, and you're not, because another I on a different timeline is saying, fuck you, I'm not, yeah, I'm actually countering whatever you do. Free will is only a possibility when our avatars are aligned, when we bring the soul home.
Well, yeah. Okay. Quick question for everybody here: if there was free will, would you stay on this planet?
As a multidimensional being, yes, because I'd be on thousands of other planets at the same time.
Yeah, but you'd be aware of it though. But at the moment, you're not. And that's what I mean. It's like, I mean, we're here. There's a choice, and we're still learning. But like total free will is like, I'm going to go visit the Pleiades and then disappear. Like, there's still the concept of free will on this planet. There's still a buffer around it, and I guess that's because the mission hasn't been completed. And that's another question for another show, because what's the mission?
This is so much fun.
Thank you all.
Not
today.
really. It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Thanks for showing up so early, Monty and Melissa.
Yeah, you guys are troopers.
Nice to
It's
see
great
you,
having
Andrea and Judy and Glenda
Yes.
and Seven. Thanks for coming in today. That's cool.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks,
great fun.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
And yeah, we'll
Thank
see
you.
everybody.
if you're keen to play again. All right. Cheers
Yes.
Come play.
so much.
Bye,
Play.
guys.
Go to bed,
Bye-bye.
you two people.
And
Gotta get
thanks for
everybody to
coming.
school.
Quantum nap time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.